So anyway, the greats. Then there are the texts which speak to a readership that I think is extra-literary, texts of political and cultural significance, the works of women writers and of Dalits. And I look at these as at the same time plotting different kinds of nationwide maps, disrupting and subverting traditional notions of literary histories, and even in the case of Dalit writing, actually questioning what we mean by a literary text. Women's press, India's first women's press, Kali for Women, set up in the mid-80s and has really discovered the work of women, published them, and indeed created a reading public. It's been very important. Dalit literature, as we have come to call the modern politically aware protest literature, written by the ex-untouchables, again made an impact on us, first of all, through a very important collection called Poisoned Bread, edited by Arjun Dangley. And over the 15 years, there has emerged this very important Dalit literature and translation. And my final category is the circulation of the very contemporary and up-to-date writing in the different languages. A number of English language journals are looking out for these, as also the Sunday supplements. And this proliferation of journals in English is also paralleled by a very lively little magazine culture in the Indian languages, certainly in Tamil. Now, the publishing enterprise Katta has an interesting scheme by which it publishes every year a collection of short stories translated from the different languages, each chosen by a nominating editor. And these editors will mainly look to those little magazines. So what doesn't get published and translated and published? Because I think that's important to turn that on its head. It's noticeable that it's mainly fiction that is translated. And we might consider what it means that ours is largely a fiction reading culture. Some classical poetry does get published, as I said. The Penguin publications have been excellent and been very widely read and used. But not modern poetry, except fairly rarely and in specialized journals. Most commercial publishers will refuse to publish modern poetry in collections and anthologies, leave alone poetry in translation by poets who are not much known outside their own language culture, on the grounds that it will not sell. Little biography and autobiography tends to get translated, except for the recent spate of Dalit life stories, particularly from Marathi. And a final category which applies particularly to Tamil, though I wonder about Urdu and Bengali as well. Texts from outside, from the Tamils outside of India, that is from Sri Lanka, Malaysia, and worldwide diaspora, are seldom translated. And this is very sad, because Sri Lankan Tamil poetry, in particular, some of the poetry marking the Civil War years, has been quite groundbreaking. So, although there is this boom in translation, the whole enterprise, I think, is also rather lazy and lacking in thinking, and also perhaps insular. The proliferation of translation also brings with it huge problems of quality control and good copy editing, and the best way of packaging and introducing a translated text, and also publicizing and marketing it. It's also worth reflecting on the curious fact that these translations that I have been talking about, that is to say from the Indian languages into English, circulate mainly within the country only. and are hardly known outside India. The exceptions are those which are known to academics outside India, primarily, I would say, from the United States, where there are well-established departments of South Asian studies, particularly of South Asian languages. There never was a big enough demand to get mainstream publishers excited, though. Again, this was just as well, perhaps, as commercial publishers fold, and the university departments in question have tended anyway to import directly from India. And I'm not at all sure how electronic publishing is going to change that particular picture. So I'll say just a little bit now about the place of translation and translated texts in university departments. Now, up to the 1960s and 70s, English was taught in Indian universities, very much as the British educationists had set it up, following pretty well the same syllabus, based on pretty well the same assumptions. But all this in the following decades began to be questioned more and more. In her introductory, the seminal collection of essays, Rethinking English, published in 1994 by Swati Joshi, she wrote about the need for a thoroughgoing reconstitution of the discipline, which she said cannot be confined to simply to replacing one set of canonized readings by another. We need to have a broader agenda which will place the study of literatures, both English and Indian, within larger, often intersecting histories that constitute them. So in the past couple of decades anyway, some of the English departments have changed in all kinds of important ways, moving away from seeing the discipline as centered on literature from England towards first world literatures in English. And then Indian writing in English or literature as an English translation, sometimes with modules in translation theory and practice, become part of the English syllabus, or are taught as standalone courses. Comparative literature, cultural studies, and literary histories, all of them depending almost entirely on texts in translation, are all taught in parallel to English studies. I'll mention just one textbook published by Macmillan in 2005, which says on its cover, prescribed by the University of Delhi for the concurrent course in the BA Honours program. Its title is Cultural Diversity, Linguistic Plurality and Literary Traditions in India. And it consists of critical articles as well as excerpts from Dalit writing, folk tales from Karnataka and Bengal, songs from so-called tribal languages, etc. All, of course, in translation into English. The insistence here on cultural diversity and the political subtext of that makes an interesting contrast with the notion of cultural unity, which is still stressed, I noticed, by Southern Academy on its homepage. This focus on the exploration of varieties of language use is also apparent in the number of texts in translation central to women's studies and the more recently set up courses in Dalit studies. Satyanarayana, who teaches at the English and Foreign Languages University, EFLU in Hyderabad, writes, "My course is not a literature course. Dalit Studies is a series of courses in the MA Literary and Cultural Studies program. I felt that there is a need to bring the new insights and theories proposed by the Dalit writers and thinkers into the elite Brahmanical institutions of the Indian active team." And perhaps with that provocative statement by Satya